Hello everyone! Today we're going to learn about advanced techniques with oil painting. So for this very first box, what we're going to do is just practicing with our blending. So I want you to choose two colors and blend them gradually to one another. So for example, I'm doing red to yellow. It's also nice to do two colors that are analogous colors. So either yellow to blue, yellow to red, red to blue, so that we can see the colors that are created in between, such as for the red to yellow, you'll see red, red-orange, orange, and yellow-orange. So make sure you're going over it a few times so we can see all those values. Keep doing this until it's blended smoothly. Unlike the first one where it was smoother, for this next one, you can have it smooth, but you want to see your brush strokes showing through. So the first one, we made it nice and smooth, so we don't really see a lot of that brush stroke texture. So for this next one, try to make the paint a little bit clumpier, so it's thicker, and you see all these nice brush strokes showing through. When you're happy with how it looks, then you can stop and move on to the next box. Continue to watch this process to see how mine turns out. We're going to skip the third box for now, and we're going to move on to the fourth one. So this one is more watered down. This is called underpainting. So you're going to choose one of your brushes, and we're going to create a sphere, and just like the underpainting of it. So we're blocking out where the darker values are going to go, leaving the lightest values pure white, which I accidentally did get a little bit too dark where my highlight is, so then I added just a little bit more paint. You're also adding your shadow and a little bit of paint to your background to darken it. Underpainting is important because it can give our work more depth and more dimension. It can create levels of contrast, and it can also better enhance areas of light, dark, and shadow overall. So we're going to do the same thing for our next one now that you kind of get an idea of how it works. So again, I'm blocking out my sphere, breaking it down, trying to leave a lighter area where there's less paint, and then also blocking out my background. So now that we had good practice for the first one, this one should go along a little bit smoother. And again, using contrast to block out that background, pushing the background darker. And then I'm also going to add a little shadow in the bottom, and then also color my table. Then we will just leave this for today, and we'll continue to work on this box tomorrow. I'm going to go back to my third box now, and we're going to learn about the sgraffito effect as well as layering on our paint with a palette knife. Now, we do have alternatives for using a palette knife. One of those alternatives are using popsicle sticks. So in this next box right now, you're going to see me take my popsicle stick with some paint globbed on it, and I'm going to apply this to my canvas paper. You'll see how this texture differs from just applying it with a brush to the painting on the left, where we got that really nice brush texture. Now we're seeing how we can create textures using your popsicle sticks. Be careful not to get it on your other boxes though while you're doing this. I also used my brush in the corner just so you can see how it differs while you're applying it. And then I'm also going to take some more of my popsicle stick and kind of go over that to add more layers. Then I'm using my popsicle stick right now to actually scratch away to show that sgraffito effect. For this sixth box, we're actually just going to practice with creating a shape and then also showing different textures in the background, letting colors kind of blend together and overlap. And then we're going to practice with the drip method. So before we get into learning how to create drips, I do want to finish my background, and then I will be washing my brush and starting to fill in the shape of my heart. Here I'm just adding some more yellow just to add some more interest in the background and more color change. And then here's where I'm cleaning my brush and starting to add in some red. I did have a little bit of that teal left on my brush because I did want some darker values. I'm using more water in the center of my heart, so it's, you know, a little bit lighter towards the center, but then darker edges. Cleaning my brush more so that I can go back in with more red paint. If it gets too dark or you're just not liking how the texture is looking, you can always go in with a paper towel to help pull up some of that paint, and then go back in and rework it until you're satisfied with how it looks. We do want to practice with that drip method, so what you do is you take some paint and then we add some water to it, and then we hold up the paper a little bit so that it is able to drip. We just let gravity kind of take it. You can use your brush a little bit to help move the drips down if it's not really working its way down. We do want to be careful not to get a lot on the table, so you will see me put like a little paper towel there so it would catch any of my drips. And if it's like getting too clumpy, like right there, see how it's starting to get too kind of close together with my drips, I actually take my brush that's clean and I kind of just take some of the drips off and make it a little bit smoother. Again, using my paper towel so I don't get it on my table. And then I just work it until I'm happy with how my painting looks. So I just use a clean brush to kind of take off a little highlight. And now for this very last scene, you're just going to practice making your own scene. So for mine, I decided to do a water scene. So at first I am using a more watered down brush, and I created my water by just painting left to right. Then for the background, I actually am smooshing my brush around. I actually had a little bit of yellow in there and some blue. Used a paper towel a little bit to create a cloud texture, but mostly I am using my brush to create that texture. Smooshing it around and keep adding darker values towards the top. Again, smooshing it to make it look like clouds. So now we're going into day 2. Day 2, we're adding more layers on top of our second underpainting. So we want this one to look more like an actual sphere. So remember, darker values of the farthest away from your light source. So I'm using red and a little bit of green, because remember, complements make values darker when you mix them together. And then I'm using more red as I work my way closer to my highlight. Again, using the shape of the circle to round our values as we're working our way around. Then I'm going to clean my brush and add white in towards the center, and then fade that white out into the red. Remember to clean your brush to help get smoother edges, and you can use a clean brush to blend them better together. Again, I recommend building up your values gradually. Really work on this. Do not rush. Take your time until it starts to round and look like a sphere. I go back in and I also add a little bit more green to pull my shadow down more. And I kind of do the same thing in my cast shadow, which you'll see in a moment. I do use red first to kind of block out where I want my shadow to be, because I didn't like where it was originally. And then I do go back over that with green to make the shadow darker. Don't forget to add a little bit of a reflected light as well to show contrast between your shadow and your sphere. For the background, I actually just used some yellow ochre. I wanted it darker for the table, and then for the back wall, I added a little bit of white with my yellow ochre just to make it a little bit lighter, but I wanted the paint to be a little bit more opaque and just pop out more with my sphere. And then lastly, we are going to go to our final scene and we're going to add in more depth. So I'm layering more blue in my painting. I'm also leaving some areas a little bit lighter so they look like waves. Painting left to right, again, building it up, darker areas and lighter areas. I'm also adding more depth into my sky, so I wanted the bottom of my clouds to be lighter, but then underneath I added left to right swiping to make it look like the sky was darker behind them. Left it lighter though towards my horizon line. I'm also pushing more shadows to the top of my clouds, and again to what I just explained about the sky in the background, I did want that to be a little bit darker as well. Keep layering until you're happy with how your scenes look. Also, please add in some type of element to it. If you're doing a water scene like I am, maybe you can add in a boat, or maybe there's a bird or even a dolphin. If you're doing a land scene, you can add a tree, a house, different things. It's all up to you how you want your paintings to look. Can't wait to see how these turn out. You can see how mine looks at the end.